And here we are. Welcome to
Hello.
Warrior Commission Now. This is where we chat about practical ways to live your Warrior Commission right now. I'm Christine Caston.
And I'm Sharon Rudolph.
And we've been living in our personal commissions for a while. And we encourage people, typically, our day-to-day, it involves encouraging people to develop as warriors and to discover and live in their unique God-created commissions in the Warrior Commission. We included the link in the text of this video, so if you guys want to check that out, you can. But these video chats are conversations that actually started in weekly calls between Sharon and I, and we've been having them for years, and they've been such a blast, hours and hours. But we felt like now is the time to encourage you with the treasures that we've discovered through these conversations. And so today's topic is going to be why warrior, not soldier. And so when we talk about what it is to be a warrior and why we call it the Warrior Commission, part of what it is about the idea of what a warrior is and what a warrior carries. So Sharon, do you want to talk a little bit about the different, let's start with what a soldier is, because we want to honor what a soldier is as well. But then we'll talk a little bit about what makes a warrior a little bit different.
Well, soldiers learn how to fight. Soldiers learn how to stand. I love, I was never in the military, but from cinema, from the movies, there's always that scene where they're just having to stand there for long periods of time, and the strength that it builds, and that there's certain training that they have to go through so that they can win in the battle. Mm-hmm. So soldiers are trained, they are skilled, they know how to stand. Mm-hmm. And no one moves. Being able to deal with this clash between two kingdoms that we live in, those are all valuable tools mm-hmm. to have. And so we truly are all part of God's army as believers. Yes. That's mm-hmm. just part of the heritage of the Church Universal. And being a soldier in this army is such an honor and a blessing to be able to serve the living God. It's mm-hmm. huge. Mm-hmm. But then there is the opportunity to step into being a warrior. So Christine, why don't you share a little bit about how a warrior is different?
Yeah, a warrior, I think there's a mindset that goes with being a warrior that is moving into being all in. It's not about the campaign or the particular time of service, if you will, kind of a short window of time. It's about being a dedicated for life. So there's a difference in passion and commitment for a warrior. And I think also warriors tend to need to balance, create a balance between their own creative problem solving, so their independence in thinking, but also in honoring leadership. And so I think that there are things that are important with being able to be in that place, which I want to talk about in a second. But I'd like to talk about first kind of the idea of that warriors tend to see beyond the battle itself into the value of what the war is about. And so Sharon, maybe you could speak a little bit to that before we move on to that next area. So
yeah, I think what comes to mind are the disciples that walked with Jesus. Mm-hmm. And they were all in for the long haul. And things happened around Jesus's ministry and at different times. And there were people who followed Jesus and were part of the crowd. Mm-hmm. And then they would just go home.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, they needed to go home. Yeah. Whereas the 12, they were all in and they stayed. And even when things got messy, mm-hmm. they stayed. And then when it came down to the very end and everything looked like it was falling apart, they still stayed mm-hmm. because they still got together in the upper room. They still, you know, ran to the tomb when they heard he was alive. They were all in, as opposed to the ones who had heard his story and really liked it.
Mhm.
And yet, when things got really bad, because even as warriors, you know, the disciples weren't perfect.
Right.
They made some mistakes. Peter is the example, you know, denied Jesus.
Right.
But he had a warrior's heart, and he still ran to the tomb, and he still tracked down Jesus, and he still was intentional about purposing to
Mhm.
be connected with Jesus.
Right.
So
And I
to
think
me,
that's the
that's the
resilience
warrior.
part. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think, I think that's the resilience part that is in a warrior, and the
Yes.
idea of the bigger picture, beyond
Yes.
just the battleground itself. Because, if you look at, you brought up Peter. So if you look at Peter, and his denial of Christ, that was like a battleground. But after that battle was over, he still stayed with the disciples. He was still in the upper room. Yes, wrestling. Yes, just like the rest of them, feeling like, was everything a lie, and asking, those questions
All
about, like, this does not look like I thought it would look, and having to deal with that. And yet, because he had that warrior's heart, he was there, and he was trying to understand what it was to step into that next phase and what that would look like. Even though he had nothing to really hold on to, he knew there was something in him. His spirit, told him that there was a greater thing than what that battle seemed to indicate, or what he understood in his own mindset as a loss, as a loss of the battle. But actually, it was actually a winning of the battle. He just didn't have the perspective yet. So I think part of what warriors do is they retreat, if you will, into that secret place with the Lord, and they learn to stay in that secret place so that they can have a better understanding of the greater picture of what the battle is and what the battle's about, or the step of the battle, in the whole war, and what that looks like. So okay, so let's talk about that other piece, Sharon, about the idea of the balance between creative problem solving and honoring leadership. Would you kind of I don't know, explore that with me a little bit, and let's talk about that. I think for some reason you're on mute. We can't hear you. I don't know what happened. But I think still not hearing you. This is live, guys. This is this is how live works. We still can't hear you. So she's going to try to change her. She's going to try to change her earbuds and see if we can get a different microphone. And in the process, I guess I'll answer my own question. With the creative problem solving, I think part of what you're trained in as a soldier is to follow the direction and follow the orders, if you will, of your leaders. And I think as Christian soldiers, part of what we train in is how to hear and listen to God, and to follow what He says. But I feel like when God gives you flexibility of choice in things, I mean, there are obviously things that the Lord says this must happen, and you say yes and you do that. But there's also a partnership that happens that's different, where the Lord walks alongside. Let me see if we can hear Sharon now. Can we hear you? We still can't hear you. No, we still can't hear you. So I don't know what's happened. Somehow something got turned off on Sharon's computer. She's here, so you get to see her, and she can hold up signs and nod, things like that. So what we may do is we may start this again at another time and record this at a different time, once we can get the technical glitches worked out. But for those of you who are listening right now, we just want to kind of continue forward. And Sharon, if you can work it out to get back in, just keep trying it, and we'll see if we can get you back. But I think that there's something that has to do with with partnering with God. As a warrior, there's a code of honor, if you will, that comes with the process of walking out what it is to be a warrior. And that code of honor is more of an internal code than it is a set of rules and regulations. So a warrior tends to have already become a bondservant of the Lord, if you will. There's a commitment and a passion that warrior has committed to be bound by love to the King of Kings. And so in the process of doing that, there's a deeper commitment that comes in saying yes. Okay, so like the difference between a soldier says yes and then, and goes and does what they need to do. But they may be like, okay, I'm not really sure what's going on, blah, 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 blah. A warrior says, yes, Lord, I will do this. I have no question about whether or not I'll do that. And then they say, and what is it I'm doing? Like, what are you asking me to do? So it's kind of like the Lord says, will you? And they say yes. And then they don't have to know anything else. It's just that place of, again, deeper commitment and trust of what it is to be with the Lord, to live with that trust of Him, to know that what He asks of you, no matter what it costs, is okay. The answer is still yes. And Sharon's agreeing. And she said, yes, I agree. So we're doing, what is it, mime? She's giving me signals and stuff here. So another thing I think is the level of confidence that they have in their ability, and in their team to win the battle. A lot of times when I think of like warriors, I think of them as being almost like a special forces type of mentality, where they've trained in the deeper places of the battleground, and where they are in that space of having confidence in their own ability because they've trained so much. Like they have dedicated to the training, knowing that in the battle they will basically fall to the level of their training. So if they just kind of train halfway and they just don't really put a lot into it in the battleground, they'll only be able to execute their part in the battle to the level that they've trained at. And so as warriors, there's something about training at a higher level, if you will, or at a expanded depth and a greater commitment to, everyone's gone home, but I'm going to keep training, and they just kind of have this extra motivation to continue deepening in the process. But they also have, she's writing, let's see, how the leader, King Jesus, partners with the commitment. How the leader partners with King Jesus, or how King Jesus is the leader? Oh, it's worth it. Yes. So yeah, so this is fun. See, like I said, it's live, so you just never know what you're going to get. But yes, so it is so worth it to partner with King Jesus in this place, because there's when you're willing to lay down your will, in a sense, your will is actually it's not laid down. Your will has already said yes. You have already chosen to say yes to God, and He knows that. And in that, there's a partnership, there's a partnering that comes that allows you to walk with God in a way that is very interactive and very close. It's a very close-knit relationship. And so what happens is when you do that, and especially when you walk with others who are also doing that, there's a team concept that comes, so each one is walking with the Lord, and you're honoring what the Lord is doing and saying in their life. And yet, as you walk this out together, there's a linking of arms that happens. There's a back-to-back kind of formation of, I know you have my back and I have yours. And you don't have to worry about them turning around and stabbing you in the back. When there's a commitment there to walk with the Lord, to say yes to God, and to honor where each person is in the process. And so there's a trust that also develops in team, as you're walking with or living out as a team of warriors that have dedicated with their yes to the Lord, and living a life that allows you to win the battles, but also to have that perspective that God gives you of what the war's really about. So with that, Sharon, sorry we couldn't hear more. You have amazing wisdom in this. So she says that's okay. So we will do this again, and hopefully have Sharon's voice in it as well for a little bit longer than what we had. But I just want to thank you guys for joining us today. It is time, like I said, to bring this to a close. But we post new chats on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. And we also have our live chats at 7:30 a.m. Pacific time on YouTube every week. So for more about the Warrior Commission, go to thewarriorcommission.com, super easy, and discover why. As each person invests in engaging with us, they will ultimately find their Warrior Commission. And we just encourage you to join the Warrior Commission and become commissioned as a warrior, one who champions the cause of Christ and influences the world for Jesus. We'll see you guys soon. On behalf of Sharon, who's clapping, and myself, Christine Gaston, thank you for joining the Warrior Commission now, and we will see you soon.